All right, everybody, welcome back to another Rake Trades video. I wanted to make this video to sort of follow up on what we talked about yesterday, which was one of our short watches, which was Square, right? So we talked about Square yesterday, how it was a top short watch for us, how if the market was weak, we were going to be looking for something to short, and Square turned out to be pretty damn weak, right? And if you look at the NASDAQ and the rest of the market as well, it had some looks to be strong throughout the day, but it ultimately was pretty weak, right? So what did we have to do? We had to examine our plan and look for potential trades that fit our plan, right? And our potential trades that fit our plan for this scenario of a weak market was short SQ, right? So we wanted to short SQ, and we next thing we had to determine was, okay, how can we take our entry, right? And entries here were a little bit tough, but they actually provided us with some pretty clean ones. So I wanted to go through and sort of make a trade recap video on exactly what I took on SQ, when I entered, targets, all that, right? So I talked about it in the last video. SQ does not have much support that it's going to be trading into, right? 201-ish was really the only level I had below this 221.60s, which we had been flirting with earlier in the week, but we hadn't gotten breaks or confirmation closes below that. Today we did, right? Today we did get an hourly close that fell and ultimately closed below 221.6. Okay. So that was sort of the first trigger that we had for a potential short, right? All right. So our second trigger, because we don't want to have one thing, right? We had confirmation closes below this 221.6. But now we sort of have to ask ourselves, okay, what else can we look for to find a potential entry in here, right? Because if you had just taken the short as we were smashing below there, that's one option. But a lot of traders don't like to do that because if they're just sweeping the lows here, they could bring it right back over and you'd be stuck in a bad short, right? So the best and safest thing to do is wait for a retest or wait for some sell setups that you can look to take potential shorts on, right? So today we got lots of multiple confirmations, and I'm actually going to remove this MA. I wasn't trading with this today. I'm going to remove this MA. We had multiple short confirmations, right? So again, we had that first hourly close below the level. Now the second one is that we are below the opening price, right? Which is clear because we opened above the hourly level. So if we broke below that, we are also going to be decently below the open, right? So that's another level of confirmation. Okay, we are below our hourly level. We're decently below the opening price, right? So now what it really comes down to is finding a sell setup that you can take that will work out in your favor, right? So the first signal bar that I took was this 5-minute inverted hammer here, right? So we got our hourly close, or we hadn't gotten our hourly close before level yet, but I was just scalping a day trade. And I took it here because what this bar is telling us and how I use it as a signal bar was that it tests higher and then ultimately closes lower, right? So I decided to take a short against this candle and against this hourly level with my stop being above here, right? So it was definitely an early entry because we hadn't gotten the hourly confirmation close below the level yet. But I was willing to do that because I was feeling a little bit of bearishness on the indices overall, right? So I took that as my first entry. That worked out, and I trimmed the position down here, and I ended up holding it down here, right? I didn't close it fully. So as we came back up, I was actually down a little bit on my position because it had decayed a little bit while Square had ultimately gone up and against me, right? So I was down a little bit, but I was fine. I was thinking, okay, here's the hourly retest of the level, right? And we didn't actually get quite to the level. They front ran it and we came up a little bit short, but they provided us with another signal bar, right? If you look here, this 5-minute, let me make this bigger. This 5-minute here provides us with a similar entry to here, right? Where we rally up into a resistance area, into a trend change on a 5-minute basis, and we test higher and ultimately close lower, right? So that's a failed buy setup. If this were to have gone upwards, right, this could have been a buy, a trend change. We could have flipped over back into an uptrend. That didn't happen in this case, right? We failed that. So that provided us with another short entry. That's where I added back onto my position, right? So from there, it was just a matter of holding for the duration of the move, right? Square's next support that I have isn't down until the 201 regions. Now, this doesn't mean I'm going to be holding till 201. We could stop and set a higher low anywhere in this area. And so I'm just going to use price action to get me out, right? So what I ended up ultimately doing is I closed another one here on this hammer. This hammer was enough for me to bail. You could have taken another re-entry here on this signal bar, but I was fine, comfortable just holding the one contract I had left. And so I held a runner all the way into the end of the day, and then I closed at the end of the day because I'm thinking I'll get another chance to take an entry tomorrow on a retest of like 215-ish or that area. If we gap down and I miss it, that's okay. But for now, I was really happy with the trade, right? And so the reason I wanted to make this video was because I've seen so many people say, oh man, it's a choppy market and the market sucks. It's so choppy. And you're not wrong, right? If you look at the S&P, we were up and down today. So there is chop. But if you focus on the price action and your setups and your plan and you follow it, there shouldn't be much chop that you have to deal with, right? Because if your plays are chopping, you just don't take them, right? Square wasn't choppy today. Square was a super clean setup, and it's the setup that it had confluence on multiple time frames, right? The daily was breaking down out of a bear flag. The hourly was giving us confirmation closes below a level. The 5-minute was giving us short entries and confirmations, right? So there was a whole lot of confidence. So I literally didn't do anything else today besides sit here and watch my 215 puts. That's all I did. Well, that's not true. I did take a couple of NASDAQ trades, but in terms of options trades, I took no other options trades. All I did was this because this was my plan, right? If we had a weak market, I wanted to find something to short. And what more can I ask for than a $5 to $7 move to the downside, right? You really can't ask for much more than that. So that was my trading day, right? It was really simple, and it was a lot of sitting and waiting because it took all day. And you don't have to watch, right? You could have just set alerts and stops, and that would have been fine. But I had other stuff I was doing, so I was just sitting watching the trade. That's literally all I did today, guys. I followed my plan, and it worked out really, really well. Ended up being on the last contract close to 100%, even throughout the time decay that I held throughout the duration of the day, right? So again, this video, the point of it is to tell you, if you follow your plan, you can avoid the chop, right? If your trade is chopping, don't sit through the chop, right? Get out because you shouldn't have planned to trade through that. You know what I mean? All right. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Just a quick video and a quick trade recap, but it was super informative. And I think that just by understanding the price action from these three rectangles, you can really take a lot of information away from this, right? So hope you all enjoyed this video, and we will talk soon. Cheers, team.